Kanako, and greetings once again. This is Kaho'olawe 5 with the Kaneai Foundation, bringing you another segment of Voices of Truth, one-on-one with Hawaii's future. And today we're in Waimanalo, out in the country, at the farm that Stephen Morse, our interviewee, is going to kind of show us around, among other things. Steve, thank you very much for being with us.
How are you?
Appreciate you taking the time. We're really interested in this project that I guess is ongoing as a result of a book that you wrote. What's coming out of that book and that whole period, which has to do with the first landing at Kaho'olawe.
Yeah, January 1976. Those of us on the landing and had pretty much been involved in, had become active in Hawaiian affairs work for several years already. I had started as a young social worker at the Queen Liliuokalani Children's Center, 21, 22 years old.
Right.
And became exposed to some of the early activism being done by a group called the Hawaiians. And the mission of the Hawaiians was to open up Hawaiian homelands and get people off the wait list. Many of those that started the organization had been on the wait list for years. Some of them had been homeless. Most of those that took part in the landing in January 1976 were folks that I had come across or I had known. Some of them were actually family members, ohana of mine. And we had become active in different organizations. For example, Walter Riddy and Dr. Emmett Aluli, and so the folks from George Hellman and on Molokai had formed an organization called Hui Alaloa, the group of the trails, to open up some of the old trails to public access again on Molokai that had been closed off by Molokai Ranch. The guy that I became very closely involved with was Kauai Puna Prijin, who sadly has passed away, but we met as a result of my work in the Hawaiians. I had not known Kauai Puna until about 1974. We were attending a meeting called by the Council of Hawaiian Organizations. We were asked to come and listen to a presentation by two men from the Native American Rights Fund in Boulder, Colorado. They came and told us about their program, which was basically a Native American legal rights project. They represented American Indian tribes, Alaskan Natives in a slew of land cases, tribal rights cases, fishing rights, timber rights, anything, gathering rights. And the first time we became exposed to that next level in dealing with federal government and rights claims on a larger issue. So they asked for volunteers, and I raised my hand along with Kauai Puna Prijin and Randy Kalahiki, who you may remember as well. Later on, we were joined by a man named Roy Covello from Kaho'olawe, and we became the founding directors of an organization called Hawaiian Coalition for Native Claims. And that's the precursor of what is now the Native Hawaiian Legal Corporation. And it was basically through Hawaiian Coalition of Native Claims, or HCNC as we call it by its acronym, that we began we received grants to do research into military occupation of Hawaiian lands. We decided in terms of priorities for one of our first projects was to do the legal research into the military's occupation of Hawaiian lands. So, we looked at some of the main ones. Kaho'olawe, of course, an entire island, 44 square miles. Makua came up on the list big time. Pohakuloa. We looked at Kamaka's place, Waikani Valley, and all the terrible stuff that's happened to them out there because of the occupation and takeover of their lands in Kaneai, you know, and the despoliation of it, you know, basically with all the ordinance that was left behind.
Right.
We decided basically that, you know, Kaho'olawe, because it was, you know, it was an island, and it was still being bombed, basically, and outrageously, you know, the destruction was ongoing.
Yeah.
That it would be our primary target in terms of organizing. So our first, you know, basically we tried to go through the process. When we did the research, we noticed that there was some talk about there being continuous monitoring of all of the military activity there by you know, Hawaiian officials, and none of that had been going on, of course, all the years.
Yeah.
And so we fired off letters basically to the congressional people, tried to go through the process of gaining access and beginning a monitoring process.
Follow the rules.
And we're denied time and again. And it basically led to a whole lot of frustration, and just said, hey, that's it. Kauai Puna had been visiting American Indians. He had brought back some interesting things from the American Indian movement and Russell Means and the Bellacourts. Yeah. And we, you know, basically decided that we needed to get somebody's attention on this. We decided to initiate a mass landing on Kaho'olawe as a symbolic protest occupation. Right. Plans came down in December of '75, and there about 100 of us arrived on Maui just prior to the landing in early January, right after New Year's. And about 100 of us left the dock at Ma'alaya January 3rd, and only 9 of us made it. 31 years later, I finished a manuscript documenting that the events that led up to the occupation of the island that day. The very first person about what happened when we got to the island, what happened when we got taken off, and what happened in the months and couple years that ensued. So I finished the manuscript about 4 years ago. I kind of had vacillated whether to finish it or not. I had taken copious notes over the years just to keep my memory and my mind, my recollections sharp. But I vacillated about completing it, not knowing what worth it had after all this time. And finally was convinced by people that number one, it had some historical value. The younger generations have no idea what went down back then. They have no idea who was involved and the sacrifices people made. And if anything, I was told, you know, you should honor the people that, especially those who have passed. You should honor them by documenting their activity. So I went ahead and did it, and I finished the manuscript. However, hardest writing, I'm a pretty good writer, but that was one of the, if anybody's ever written a book, can understand the first one is really hard. It's hard. But, you know, I had a period in 2006, 7, 8 when I got sick, you know, and I had some downtime, so I decided to go for it. And I finished it. Still looking for a publisher, so I began sharing it with friends and family members, and just say, read it, tell me whether it's worth anything. And I started to get some good feedback from it, and then a couple of years ago, a good friend of mine that went to Kamehameha with me was a year older, and then we went on to college together, still a year older. He went on to Beloit College in Wisconsin, came visit me, And he stayed with me on the farm here for a couple weeks, and I shared the manuscript with him, and he said, "You mind if I take this with me?" And I said, "No, go ahead." Just a little under a year ago, he called me and he said, "Hey, I sent your manuscript to this friend of mine who helped me produce and direct a documentary for my organization, World Council of Elders. And she really likes it, and she's been looking for a project to follow up. Her first project was a documentary called Hawaii, A Voice for Sovereignty.
Right.
Her name's Catherine Balknight.
Right.
And she's really likes your manuscript, and she's wondering whether, you'd be okay with us turning it into a film project, And so, one thing led to another, and for about the last 9-10 months, we've had this film project going where, it's just, it was beyond all my expectations, but Woody and his wife Katie, who have an organization called the World Council of Elders, have a subsidiary to the World Council called Living Wisdom Media. And through Living Wisdom Media, what they're going around the world doing is collecting the ancient wisdom, indigenous wisdom of the elders, and compiling it and archiving it in films and DVDs and whatever you have, just to preserve it. So they said, let's put our little hui together. Katie and I can serve as the executive producers, whatever you want to call us. Catherine can direct the film, and we'll just keep our little hui small for now, but we'll grow it. He says, the other thing we ought to do is, my son Ryan works with a guy out in San Diego named Chris Olnick. They have an agency out there called Agency 2.0 that does social media work. And what they've done recently is they've raised money for another film using a social media campaign. Facebook, websites, and just generating a lot of interest through social media for your fundraising. And I say, I like that. That's pretty innovative.
Really? Yeah, cutting edge.
So that started, and then we brought a guy named Ed Rampell. I don't know if you remember Ed Rampell.
I remember the name.
Ed lived here for maybe 15 years, back in 70s and 80s, and did a lot of writing about the indigenous struggles here and in Tahiti, Cook Islands, all over. And he's now in Hollywood, basically, doing a lot of screenwriting and promotional work. And so Catherine said, I'll talk to Ed. Maybe Ed would be interested in doing the screenplay. So Ed just, I think early June finished, or late June finished the first draft of the screenplay.
Wow.
So things are moving well along.
The younger generations are coming up, and a lot of them are enthusiastic, a lot of them are energetic, a lot of them are well educated. But when it comes to these issues, Hawaiian issues, there's no real compilation of who was involved where, or what the calendar of events was, and how things transpired.
In the manuscript, I talk a lot about the characters because, it's Walter Riddy, Dr. Aluli, who became and George became the nucleus of PKO, to protect Kaho'olawe, who I consider to be the real heroes in Kaho'olawe, the Kaho'olawe movement, because
they hung in there.
They hung in there, you know. I mean, for 20 years before the island actually got returned, you know. So, they did all of the hard political, legal negotiations and wrangling that eventually led to President Bush ceasing the bombing, although there was a little political stuff happening there.
Sure.
And then the island being turned back to the state, you know, and then with under trust to the native, the soon-to-be formed Native Hawaiian Nation. Our boats got intercepted by the Coast Guard helicopter about a mile or two off Kaho'olawe.
So that's why only 10 got on the...
And well, actually, it was really funny. And I laugh about it and I talk about it, how hilarious it was, because we were like were like a mile. You could almost swim to the island.
Right.
And the helicopter had come down and had taken the serial numbers off each boat.
Mm-hmm.
And the boats were all owned and operated by Maui fishermen. Mm-hmm. And they were spooked. We pull the boats as close together as we can on the
right.
water, if you can believe this.
Oh, yeah.
And we have our kuka right there on the water.
Circle of boats. Yeah. How appropriate.
And basically, you know, he tells us the captains want to go back.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, we got tons of gear. We had Sonny Kaniho, I don't know if you remember, Coach Cobb Adams from Mokuea Island. Mm-hmm. We had a good 100 people, I would say, ready to land and stay a while.
Yeah.
Coach had 1,000 feet of moi moi net ready to go fish and feed us for a week or two.
Self-sustaining, exactly.
Until they sent the Armada to get us. Right? Yeah. So, you know, I talk about these people because I think, you know, I think the younger guys need to know about some of these characters.
Exactly.
They were simple kua'aina guys, but they were real complex, you know, in a lot of ways. Sonny, for example, I got to know really well through my work with the Hawaiians. Right. He was a real champion for advocating for opening up Hawaiian homelands. And a lot of that came from his personal his hurt, because his dad had, you know, the 1952 Hawaiian Homes list, the infamous one that they lost. Right. And then all of a sudden there was this new list that was drafted in 62, and it had all of these high mukamak names on it, and none of the original people were
Some
on
of them disappeared.
Yeah. I talk about Sonny and how, you know, I remember asking Sonny, and I read about it in the manuscript, one day we were driving from Hilo to Pu'uhonua in Kona, and I asked him, you know, he's talking about this and he's actually crying, you know, in the car with me, and I said, well, why you take this on, you know? And he said, it's my challenge. Yeah.
He had no choice.
Yeah,
it's one of those no choice things.
It's my challenge, you know.
Well, even like Kauai Prijin, you know, I mean, he was doing UN work early on.
You know, Kauai Puna, you know, we ran into a little bit of problems with our work, our Hawaiian Coalition Native Claims, because of our involvement in all of the political confrontation. We had some major grant money, and we basically came this close to having closing our doors because some of the funding got pulled on us. It was through our legal research at Hawaiian Coalition of Native Claims that we first started looking at the whole issue of reforming a Hawaiian government again, and the whole sovereignty issue. We had folks like John Van Dyke come in and do special contract work with us, and write papers, legal papers, and documenting Hawaiian sovereignty and how there's still a position there for us. You know, so you know. Under Kauai Puna's leadership, I mean, we were cutting edge, you know, in terms of what the work we were doing. You know,
but you know, those same dynamics exist today. I mean, there's so much that needs to be covered. You know, right from boots on the ground, food sovereignty issues, basic land issues, all the way up to international relationship building. You know, I mean, and the dynamics is still there. I think the secret still remains as to how do we bring together all of these different groups that have these different kuleana, but all have the same goal in mind, and you know, what can we agree on?
We still got Kaho'olawe's out there, you know. I live right up in the valley above one, right? It's called Bellows. You know, we still have, they're still bombing the hell out of Pohakuloa, you know, and they still haven't resolved Raymond Kamaka's issue over there in Waikane, right? Then Makua is still unresolved. You know, the younger people need to know there's still Kaho'olawe's that haven't been resolved out there. They're called by different names, but there's still big time military occupation and destruction of Hawaiian land out there.
Well, that's true, and I mean, that's like project-specific types of work that you can focus in on, you know, definite areas and so forth. And then you've got the bigger one of the governance issue, which covers it, you know, and needs the broad base of everyone who wants to participate in it. So, you know, all of those challenges that existed then exist again today. I think we're working with a broader base of knowledge now. I think we have a greater awareness of what our history going further back was, you know, and what our international options are. You know, things are changing.
The military occupation goes beyond just the Hawaiian claims thing. It has an environmental bent to it as well.
Huge.
You know, down here in Bellows, you know, they had a dump site. I'm going to use that as the worst case scenario for how poor stewards the military has been of our lands.
Yeah.
The water maybe 100 feet away, right after the naupaka and the sand. They had a dump site that there for years, and it's where we all in Waimanalo take our children to learn how to swim because the water is so nice. We picnic, they go body surfing, they go swimming, they go fishing, and this dump site, which they finally shut down and closed, and then just put some kind of like some yellow tape around the place,
that'll help.
Besides the iwi down there, choke with iwi down there. So a few years ago, and I'm so happy the Waimanalo Neighborhood Board guys did this thing. They said, you need to clean that up. And so they said, okay, we'll clean it up. There's no ordinance in there, it's just rubbish, you know, no ordinance, whatever. So I got to give credit. Kaho'olawe and Neighborhood Board guys, Waimanalo community activists said, well, good, we'll come watch.
Let's see the inspection reports.
They pulled up a couple unexploded torpedoes. Right there, 100 feet where our kids
Well, they were probably overlooked, you know, I mean.
Overlooked?
All of the experts and the high dollar consultants who were responsible for monitoring.
If our kids ever got maimed, we're going to go after them.
I think we have to keep putting one foot in front of the other. We have to keep covering individual issues, and we have to learn from what we've learned over the years and the decades, and that's how to be smarter. But we have something working in our favor too, and that's kind of the big time frame in which some of those oppressive powers are not so powerful anymore. You know, and I think it's kind of an issue of history where, you know, the basic inhabitants, the indigenous people of the location, just stay on, and they don't go away. And governments come and go. You know, military powers come and go. So I think we've all got to keep working hard at it.
We need to tell the younger people about what's going on. Or what took place then, because it still has so much relevance for the work that we still need to do.
It should put into perspective what they're
there needs to be that bridge building right now between us guys who are getting a little long in the teeth and the younger guys who, many of whom who have no conception of what took place back then, you know, and some of the struggles that happened in
But they know something's wrong and they want to fix it.
They know something is wrong. I know they do.
Because for this segment of Voices of Truth, we want to thank you for being with us. Appreciate it very much. I'm looking forward to seeing whichever comes out first, whether it's the manuscript, Kaho'olawe First Landing, Stephen Morse, or whether it's the documentary that comes out, whatever comes first.
All the younger folks, Onipa, Imua.
So be looking for it, looking for it, and keep up the good work. And I'd like to thank all of you out there for tuning in. We hope you'll look for First Landing. This is Kaho'olawe 5 with the Kaneai Foundation, branch of the Free Hawaii Broadcasting Network. Hui ho!
Mahalo for watching Voices of Truth One-on-One with Hawaii's Future. Watch us on the web 24/7 at voicesoftruth.tv.com. You'll find all our shows, including this one, in case you want to see it again or share it with family and friends. Also view our weekly video commentaries at freehawaiitv.com. And check out our blog, published daily, at freehawaii.info. It's all part of the Free Hawaii Broadcasting Network.